And now, please put your hands together and give a warm welcome to your host, Rob Croll.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thank you to those of you who are joining us here today and those of you who are joining us online. We appreciate you being here. My name is Rob Croll, and I'm the Program Director for the Internet Marketing and Business Intelligence degrees here at Full Sail University. And I'm hosting this session, which is called Check Your Tech, Starting Up and Throwing Down. Now, please put your hands together and help me welcome our panelists, Michael LaPlante, Shea Glennie, and Randy Savarese. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce them or give you their bios. We'll start with Shea, who's on the end. Last year, Shea launched the Orlando office of weVENTURE to serve womenpreneurs across 5 counties. She's pioneering a network of women's economic development initiatives across Central Florida on behalf of Florida Institute of Technology in partnership with Leslie Hyelema. Additionally, Shea co-created the Empathy Framework, an innovative model that helps founders use systematic organizational empathy to increase sales, create the right products, get into the hearts of their customers, and build a culture of empathy that unlocks team capacity. Shea's focus on leveraging digital leadership and business design to increase local economic impact won her the title of a 2016 Game Changer by the Orlando Business Journal. When she tires of business talk, she geeks out over horses, travel, and scotch. Yeah. Next, Randy Savarese is a 2003 digital media graduate and a digital strategist experienced in marketing, public relations, and broadcast television. He has been helping startups and establish business communications with consumers and stakeholders for over a decade. And finally, Michael LaPlante is a 2010 graduate from the Web Design and Development program here at Full Sail. He's a web engineer, user experience designer, and entrepreneur focusing on bringing the community closer together. Michael spends his time organizing startup weekends, Startup Week, and putting together a weekly digest email newsletter called Startup Digest in the local Tampa Bay community. With experience ranging from startups to large corporations, Michael brings knowledge across all mediums to entrepreneurs in his community to inspire them and guide them along the right path. Michael also runs his own design and development shop called LaPlante Web Development, where he focuses on providing quality solutions to his client, which range from Fortune 500 companies to local business owners. So again, let's give them a round of applause. So a new business starts up in the United States every minute. So while I was introducing our guests, about 5 new businesses started. But according to Forbes, the failure rate for new businesses is around 80 to 90%. While we're living in a time where it's increasingly possible to start your own business because of all the technology and shifts in attitudes towards freelancing and consulting, if you are going to be one of those 1 or 2 in 10 people who are going to be successful at starting your own business, you need to be prepared for success from the start. And today we're going to be talking about those things. I'm going to be asking the guests about their experience, asking them for some suggestions and tips that will help you as you try to start your own business. But first, let's ask them to tell us a little about themselves aside from their official bios. So can we start with you, Michael?
Yeah, I'm Michael. A short while ago, I was in your seat. From there, I've done everything from startups to corporations, just like my bio said. So I've worked in small startups from the start, ground up, raising money, first guy in the door. I've worked with large corporations trying to, build out mega healthcare type of applications, and then I work with all of you guys as a mentor, just kind of, helping and giving back, because that's the biggest thing, that you always want to do, no matter where you are in your career, is giving back to each other.
Thank you, Randy.
I think my career pretty much is like a magic 8-ball in a choose your own adventure book. It's like totally random. I'm a person who just goes after things that are interesting, and it all started here with a digital media degree program, which was kind of like a jack of all trades degree. So when I left, I went accidentally really into tech startups and just kind of built from there. I did a music television network. I worked for a production company for a little while. And then I did some internet marketing, freelanced a lot, and then went into military, U.S. Navy public affairs for the last 5 years, which was a really amazing opportunity. And really, I just did it because I was bored, and I needed a really just something to challenge me. And now here I am, about to start my own thing, and really like loving this whole scene. Orlando has really like exploded in the last 10 years, so this is pretty exciting.
Thank you. Shea.
So I'm Shea Glenny. I am the director of weVENTURE. I actually graduated from the Internet Marketing Bachelor's program while living in Kansas City, and I was learning from Rob. So I have amazing, fun, wonderful memories of going through the program with Rob. I ended up starting an internet marketing agency by accident in Kansas City. As I was learning, the best way to learn is to teach. And so some of my friends who were small business owners said, "Can you teach us how to do the social media thing?" So I was like, "Sure." So after every class, I would run and teach them, what I learned. And after they paid me to tutor them in social media, they realized there's a reason people are getting degrees in this. Can I just pay you to do it? So my agency started out of that kind of a demand. And my family was, my siblings were getting married and having babies, and I wanted to get back to Central Florida, where I'm originally from. So I moved back here in January of 2013 and brought a lot of the Kauffman Foundation entrepreneurial programs to Orlando and Central Florida. So we brought 1 Million Cups to Orlando, and love to do a lot of work with Startup Weekend. I'm just really interested now in where's the intersection between business design, right, startup principles, and then also leveraging technology, not just launching technology products, but leveraging digital tech to scale and grow.
Great, thank you, Shea. And thank you to all of you as grads for coming back and being here and being part of this and being willing to mentor our students and help them to be successful in their own careers. So if you were at graduation today, what would you tell a graduate who's walking across that stage?
There's never a bad opportunity. Always go into things thinking you can be selling something or you're going to make a business connection. Business connections happen in like the most random places, whether you're out to dinner or out with friends at the movie theater. You just run across somebody, you strike up a quick conversation. Next thing you know, you guys could be starting a business together and become best friends for life.
He stole mine, so.
Rude.
I would say be adaptable, be flexible, because, and especially now, and if you're interested in startups, it's really vital that you're able to fill a variety of roles. The more you know, the better you are at filling whatever is needed is going to make you super valuable. So learn everything you can, even if it seems like something that isn't even related. It may end up being related somehow. So yeah, that's my advice.
Start before you're ready. Look for opportunities to fail so you can fail fast and succeed faster. And give before you ask.
Great advice, thank you. So that's for graduates. What if you were at orientation today? What advice would you give to an incoming Full Sail student?
So you guys have awesome opportunities all around this campus. The best thing I can say is make yourself like a sponge and absorb everything. If you're walking down these hallways, if you see somebody and you haven't met them, stop them, say, "Hi, I'm Joe Smith. This is what I do. What are you doing?" And try and make that business connection, because who knows where it's going to go. And the more you absorb, the more valuable you're going to be at graduation going forward.
Yeah, when I was here, they said you can have a $30,000 education or you can have $1 million education. And that is pretty vital. I mean, you have instructors who've already been there, right? Talk to them, like squeeze every last kernel of knowledge out of their brains, because that is above and beyond more valuable than, I mean, I shouldn't say like the curriculum, but like seriously, they have practical advice, practical knowledge that will directly apply to whatever you're trying to do. So they're like a super important resource.
Yeah, make friends with your instructors for sure. Be really good in students and make them look good in their jobs. I think that, especially for those who want to graduate, start your own business, you need a network to launch a business with. And the way you build a true network that's going to help you out when you're ready to bring value to the market is to have already added value to their lives and their projects and their initiatives. So all throughout your experience in Full Sail, add value, add value, add value, and build your network in your industry.
Great, thank you. So one last general question, and we'll reverse the order and start with Shea this time. How would you define creativity?
Okay.
No pressure.
Creativity, I think, is it blurs the lines with innovation. So innovation is doing something new, right? So you're looking at an existing problem and you're finding an innovative way to bring a solution to that problem. And I think that creativity is probably the process and the combination of tools and philosophies and values that you bring to the process of innovation. Does that fly?
Hey, whatever you say, flies.
Yeah, I think you can drop the mic now. I would say it's a, God, I just want to, yeah. It's an openness, really. I'm a problem solver at heart. Like, that is if I could put that on my business card, I would. And in order to do that, you have to be able to think creatively and think, I don't want to say outside the box because that's corny, but being open to things that may not even seem relevant, it can become relevant, and being able to create new things out of things that seem disparaged. I don't know. It's just like, it's an openness, I think. It's an openness to experiences.
I would say probably creativity to me, especially at Full Sail, is being your true self. You guys are in an awesome space where you can just do whatever you want and you're not judged for it, and that's awesome. Let your colors shine, dress the way you want, because that's going to be your identity going forward. You know, I'm up here in a hoodie and he's up here in a business suit, but you'll never see me in a business suit unless I'm absolutely required to, because that's not my identity. My true self is jeans and a t-shirt and having a good time, and you know, I can get business serious when I need to get business serious as well.
I do own a hoodie. I just want to put it on.
not to call you out or anything.
I do, actually, too. Randy, in an earlier conversation, you talked about having worked at a music startup, and that in the end, you and the other folks working there went for 3 or 4 months without actually getting a paycheck.
Yes.
So what did you learn from that experience?
So first of all, out of curiosity, does anybody remember the Tube Music Network? The Tube Music Network? Okay, so for those watching at home, nobody. And that was, this is a cautionary tale, right? So in 2003, right, when I left here, I think it was 2004, I joined, this was my first big gig. I joined this music television network that was operating on the digital bandwidth, and it was gonna be this revolutionary thing. After 3 years, they shut the doors. About 3 months prior to that, the funding dried up, and they assured us that there was going to be more, that it was going to come through. And we kept working on it, and I think, you know, there's several reasons why you continue to do that. One, I think, is that we put 3 years into this thing. And when you do this, there was only maybe 20 of us. And you're a family. I mean, after 3 years, and especially having to fill so many roles, you know, in this size business, you're a family. So at that point, it's not even necessarily that you're doing it for the paycheck. I mean, you are, but it's this thing that you've built, right? And so you want it to succeed. And I think in retrospect, because afterwards I was kind of depressed about it, you know, because this thing, there was nothing that we could have done about it. The business end didn't work out, and it failed. And I think, you know, in hindsight, seeing the red flags, I think maybe it would have been better for me to have taken a more proactive approach. And I think that's easier said than done when you're talking about someone else's business. I mean, I realize if it's your startup, you'll ride that thing to the end, and you won't really notice maybe if it's time to pull it. But if you're working for one, I think try to stay in tune to what's going on, and if it looks like things are starting to go wrong, maybe pull out, or at least internalize, you know, that things may not end up well, because you don't want to end up at the end kind of with that feeling of loss, you know, like you didn't see it coming. So be aware. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Michael, when we spoke previously, you mentioned some gotchas that might be useful for new business owners to be aware of.
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of chime off what Randy said. The first thing is do your homework. Do your homework on anybody you're going to be getting in business with. If they say they have a ridiculous amount of money or they have this experience, try and look that up. Don't take somebody at face value because you're going to end up getting burned. It's happened to probably all of us up here on the panel at one point or another. I guess the next point is, like Shea said, be ready to fail and fail fast and be adaptable. There's so many, red flags as a startup owner that you just ignore that are on the wall, and you're just like, no, this is going to work. You're super passionate, but the more you can learn to adapt and adjust to that stuff, those red flags will kind of mold and work to your advantage. So those are really the two big key points I had as the takeaways there, and Randy kind of segued me right into it as well.
I meant to do that.
So both of you are sort of saying, trust your instincts, do the research, make sure that you understand. And
if it sounds too good to be true, it's definitely too good to be true.
And there's that point too. And I realize it's hard because there's that, you think this is going to succeed, right? And you hear people telling you that no, it's not going to work. And there's that pull between like, you actually can pull it off at the last minute. Like have an Elon Musk moment where like you're at the brink of disaster and then you pull it out. But there's like a lot. It's a hard decision to make. So I understand that's difficult, but try.
Yeah, and I mean, on the point of a non-gotcha, just something you have to prepare yourself is you have to be very mind strong and be very driven, because running and building your own company is a very emotionally and mentally taxing thing, especially once you have employees and you have to worry about how you're going to make payroll and help those guys out and not close the doors. And more times than not, if you're willing to, stick it out and push through and drive, you're going to find a way to make that payroll, and it's just going to keep happening week after week after week. But at the start, it's especially rough. Make sure you surround yourself with good friends, partners, husbands, wives, all that kind of stuff, because they're going to be your rock that you lean on. They're going to see you at your weakest time. They're going to see you at your best times as well.
So on that subject, let's go a little bit deeper on that. I think when we think about entrepreneurs and especially startups, we're thinking about someone who's working 60, 80 hours a week, and they have no, work-life balance, kind of. What suggestions, if any, do you have for that? And when you have been an entrepreneur, what did that look like for you?
So I think that work is play and play is work, right, when you're in your sweet spot. I do think that the conversation maybe is a little bit different. So maybe instead of thinking about work-life balance, maybe we think about like a play-rest balance. I think that the way that the digital age has changed our social habits and our access to relationships and managing relationships and caregiving and building networks and bringing products to market, I think that really it's more of a conversation of how do you manage your energy more so than even like a work-life balance.
Great, thank you. Anyone have anything to add to that?
I'm still trying to figure that out, honestly. I like that new definition. It's difficult when you have a wife and children and family because you have to split your time. And it's difficult. I mean, even myself, I find that, it's hard not to take the work with you. And I enjoy it so much that it's so much a part of me that it's difficult to separate that and be in the moment. And that's something that I have to practice just every day. So I know how hard it can be, but it can be done.
I would say that the biggest takeaway I've learned between starting companies and having companies fail on me is to make time for yourself regardless, no matter how stressful things get, because you're going to be working those long hours regardless, whether you say, no, I'm going to be the guy that's running my strict 40-hour work week. It's not going to happen. You're going to do 80 to 100-hour work weeks. Makes time to get yourself in the gym, to do something that's healthy, to get out to a coffee shop and just have some kind of interaction, have somebody you can bounce something off of, because otherwise you're going to be in your own head a lot, and that's the worst thing you can do for yourself.
Yeah, and I'd like to jump into, as you guys are building companies, think about the cultures that you're building, right? As a founder, you're setting the pace, you're setting the culture. So you have the opportunity to build some workplaces that really facilitate the new way that work is done, right? We have this new rhythm of kind of learn and apprentice and then go and execute and maybe a little bit of sabbatical or rest or travel, right? And then back into a learning zone. So think about the company cultures that you want to build. even from the beginning.
I think that's great advice, and it definitely is a different world today because of all the technology that we have that enables us to not only take work with us wherever we go, but also to remain connected if we need to do that, but also hopefully makes our lives easier. So do you have any suggestions for technology that you would recommend for a person starting up a new business?
Yeah, we have with weVENTURE, we have a digital pack that we get every new client started with. So that's Dropbox, it's Basecamp, it's Trello, it's Calendly, Buffer, and MailChimp. Those are kind of the core digital tools that we get every founder, every starter set up with.
I'd like to throw in Evernote as well. That's a big one that you can always take away with. Email. Surprisingly, I still make people laugh, but email is still a big key thing.
I love email.
That I use every day. So I know between those two and Evernote for sure, between whether it's note takings, taking pictures of business cards, whatever it is, like I just jam everything into Evernote and like go. Some other tools that are more popular, like today and age, like Slack and HipChat and some type of like
really digging
messaging app. Just especially once you start getting a team or you're talking with anybody, like it's easy to onboard people right through there, have a conversation going. You can check it whenever you need to. You can mute it when you need to, which is really super helpful instead of somebody trying to call you constantly to get an answer.
I don't. They just stole all my. Wait, Airmail. That's like the dorkiest one, but it makes email beautiful, and I like that. I mean, I dig email, so it's like a cool. And Slack. I love Slack.
Great, thank you. So let's talk about if you were to start a business, or if you were thinking about starting a business, say in 6 months or when you graduated, aside from those technology things, what other resources are there that you would recommend to someone?
Hire an attorney. Have legal on your side. Next would be an accountant. You definitely want some kind of accountant and accounting software. The third, I don't know, I'll let somebody else go from there.
So I am a huge fan of business design tools, and Michael, I know you use these tools as well. So get into a class and learn how to use a business model canvas. Get into a class and learn how to use a value proposition design canvas, and find out some structured ways to do customer validation. Customer validation is like my soapbox right now. So I hope you team me up, Rob, for really diving deep into that conversation.
Well, let's do it now. Talk more about that.
All right, so the weakest part of any pitch or new business idea, and you'll hear this from pitch competition judges, from angels and VCs, it's always the value proposition. The value proposition is always the weakest, and that's because we think, right? Like we're so in love with our baby, our idea, that we're sold on the inherent value and the intrinsic value that the world is going to want this and the world is going to love this. And it's not that the world doesn't love it and want it, but you may not really, if you don't do customer validation conversations and actually test your hypothesis about your customer segment and about the problem and the solution fit that you're trying to work on, if you don't validate those, you're just gonna come out with maybe the wrong feature set to begin with, or you're going to start out with the wrong services or even the wrong marketing language or the wrong internal processes to support getting that service or product to market. When you do your customer validation work up front, it's free, number one. You'll become so much smarter about your market, and you're going to mitigate your risk tremendously.
Great, thank you. And so just to clarify, in case anyone doesn't know, when Shea's talking about pitch, she's talking about pitching your new business idea. And that can be anything from going to the bank to get a loan to pitching to venture capitalists who you want to fund your business. So in your opinion, all three of you, is it worth for somebody who's starting let's say somebody wants to start a recording studio, should they get venture capital? Should that be the plan, the direction that they go?
So I'm a big proponent of bootstrapping. What bootstrapping means is funding yourself for as long as you can go. I am a big proponent for that, because if you can bootstrap your own business, you're still your own boss. As soon as you take money from somebody else, they're going to be running your company, and regardless of their intentions and how much they say they're not going to change anything, they're going to change stuff because they want to see a return on their investment. So as long as you can bootstrap your startup, do that, because that will be the most beneficial thing, because you're still going to own that. And then back to the pitching point, if I can go back there, if you don't mind, hire a pitching coach if you can. If not, pitch to anywhere. I mean, you hear your elevator pitch, your elevator talk. Anybody, I said, find somebody in the hallway after you say your name, give them your elevator pitch and see how they take it. At the end, if they're still like, so what do? You probably need to work on what you do. If they get it completely and they're like, that's an amazing idea, keep refining it. It's always funny, but, look at yourself in the mirror and just do it over and over again. We're up here on stage, but, for talks we give, I know personally, I'll sit in the mirror and give the talk and just make sure, like, I'm not making any weird facial expressions or something funny that, you guys in the audience would pick on. So it's still that kind of thing. And especially when you're starting a company, the pitch is key, because you obviously want customers. So how you convey that, and most people only will give you 30 to 60 seconds of their attention span before they start zoning out or just looking right through you, and you can kind of see that facial expression on people as well when they start doing that.
I think one thing to build on that too is something that would make that easier for you is to really be honest with yourself and do a really thorough self-assessment. Like, know who you are, know what your strengths are, know what your weaknesses are, so that you can plan for that. Maybe you're not the person to do the pitch, right? Like, maybe somebody else would be better suited to do that because it's just not in you. Knowing what your weaknesses are and what your strengths are will go a long way towards every part of the process.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Michael. And I think that, as you sort of alluded to, that applies not just to the pitch. It applies to running the business, right? No one is probably good at everything.
Yeah.
You will learn to become very good with money and how to survive on very little money as well.
Oh, and back to the VC part. I just read yesterday there was a prominent VC woman who was talking about the gravy train is probably going to be over pretty soon. So thinking about the lean startup and thinking about doing it by yourself, bootstrapping, is really, it's not even a luxury. You really should be thinking that's how it has to happen, because funding may not be a thing that's going to happen for you.
On the funding piece, for those of you who are pretty set on you do think you want to pursue angel investment at some point, or even VC, look beyond the dollars. If you've done your validation work and you get some early traction and you've got proof of that traction, the money will come. If there's a market and you've got the right fit, the money will come. So don't take just any money, right? Look for financial partners who are going to bring a Rolodex, right? Or industry connections, or manufacturing or distribution channels. Look for a partner, a financial partner who's going to bring more to the table than just some dollars, because there's a lot of people that can bring dollars to the table.
I think partner is the key word there versus money guy or something. You want those connections, definitely.
Great. Okay, so this question is just for Shea. You're at weVENTURE, you're working with women entrepreneurs. What special challenges do they face in the startup space?
So there's a lot of studies going on globally and nationally right now on what does a womanpreneur look like, and what are challenges. Why are there less women founders who account for fewer economic dollars, right, in our economy? When there's also stats that show when there is at least one woman co-founder on a team, the company tends to be 25 to 35% more profitable because of her leadership style, because of a female leadership style. So what we're noticing with weVENTURE, and something that we're working to change, two things specifically. We want to help women, prepare more women to pursue capital. So like Michael and like Randy, I'm a big proponent of bootstrapping. And then there comes a point where in order to scale and reach new markets, you do have to take funding. And that might be bank loans. It may not be angel. But there's a preparation process in getting ready to pursue capital, right? There's a mindset about money, and we're working to change some of that and kind of elevate the mindset around money with womenpreneurs. And then the other thing we're really specifically working on is helping all women to leverage digital technologies. So not every womanpreneur is going to bring a technology product to market, but every womanpreneur can and should be leveraging digital technologies to grow and scale her company, reach new markets, and expand her presence.
Great, thank you. So I think we've touched on this a little bit, but how important is personal branding for a person about to start a business? And what kinds of things should they be doing?
Do you want to take us?
Well, I'm a big fan of personal branding, so I'm hoping one of you maybe has a controversial comment about it. Huge proponent of personal branding. I work it into all of my foundational work with new founders and new starters. We just kind of start with a very simple, there's something called a personal brand canvas. So I clearly like all of these design tools that are tangible, so you can look that up and play with it. As the founder of a new company, you're the face of the company. You are the lead spokesman, and eventually you might be able to bring some team members that can do some pitching for you, but in the beginning, you're the only one who's doing it. You're also the lead salesman, right? You're the chief vision caster. So you've got to be really clear on who you are, what you value, so that you can be very intentional in communicating yourself and your vision, and also starting to build that company culture and attracting on-culture partners to join you in your venture. So I think it's very important.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. And I think that goes back to what I was saying too about knowing yourself. It makes it easier for you to brand when you know what you stand for. There's a great TED Talk by Simon Sinek called, what is it, the Power of Why, I think it's called. It's awesome, but it all starts with your why. Not necessarily, what does he say? It's not what you do, it's not what you do, it's why you do it. And when you know that about your product or your service, and you can communicate that over and over again to everyone, that's your brand. And people will be able to resonate with that, and that'll go a long way towards, fulfilling your goals.
I don't have much to add to this. Just remember that as it is your brand and you're building that, it's going to be who you are for probably the rest of your life. So while you're building yourself and your brand, remember it's going to be your reputation for a long time. So make sure it's a reputation that you're proud of, and not something that I hear a lot of people are just like, yeah, I threw this together in 5 minutes because I had a meeting that I needed to be at. Like, take some time. Like, branding is probably one of the most important things you can do when you're starting a business.
That's truly true, and there's a fun tension there because, like Michael said, this is going to be with you for a long time. You're building a reputation. Relationships don't change real fast, so you need to know your core value set, and that's probably not going to change over the course of your life too much. And you are going to, as you discover and create yourself in your market, you're going to iterate your personal brand, right? So you're going to give yourself room to kind of grow, and your personal brand really becomes the umbrella that holds all your various projects together. I don't know any entrepreneurs that only have one project they're a part of, right? So it's your personal brand that brings cohesion to various projects that you're involved in. So let it be a little bit fluid, but integrous, like Michael was talking about.
And it's something you can work on now. I mean, you can go Google brand worksheet, right? And just start doing these worksheets that'll help you flush out what it is you believe and what it is you're trying to do, and it'll help you paint that picture. I find a lot of times it helps to write these things out. So
it goes back to my point about, being your true self and figuring out that identity. I mean, if you don't want to be the guy in the suit, don't be the guy in the suit. If you want to be the guy and the girl in the suit, then be the guy or girl in the suit. But as soon as you find that identity, stick to it and don't try and change because, some VC that you're taking money from is like, I want you to dress this way. No, that's not the way I run my company. My company has this culture, like Shea was saying. This is how I'm going to run it. Like, if that's the case, then you've obviously made a bad money connection and you shouldn't take that deal in the first place.
So earlier, Shea was talking about sort of doing what you love, and I think that's something that we see a lot more now. That people's advice is do what you love. So as a counterpoint to that, I'm going to make a devil's advocate argument here. And sometimes what you love isn't going to pay the bills. So how do you balance those two things? Like if I love bowling, I'm probably not going to be a professional bowler and make a living from that. So how do you find the business idea that hopefully you love when you're not sure what that might be?
You scrap and you fight. A lot of entrepreneurs that I know when they're starting out, they still have some kind of full-time job that helps them pay the bills, whether that's working a desk job, being a receptionist somewhere, doing something like that that's an easy, part-time or full-time job, and then they're hustling on nights and weekends, they're working on their idea, and once they really get that solidified, they run for it. I've seen some people even go to their companies and say, hey, this is what I've been working on, this is what I'd love to do, and then the company ends up supporting them in the process as they go forward.
Yeah, it's trial and error, I think. I mean, you're not going to know unless you try. And the worst thing that can happen is you fail at it, right? And that's not the worst thing, because then you've learned a bunch of valuable lessons. So go for it. I think, yeah, that saying has an asterisk next to it, because you should be passionate about what you're doing, but not everything is going to pay, right? But maybe it shouldn't. And so maybe that ends up being something that you do as well as something else that just kind of fuels that creative energy. I mean, don't abandon something you love, but maybe you have to, or maybe find something that's adjacent to it. Like, if you want to be a professional bowler, you can't, but maybe you can invent a new bowling pin or something, and still be involved in that particular industry that you love and still have a part of it. I think if you be creative with your solutions, you'll find that you'll be able to be adjacent, at least, if not exactly doing what you want.
Yeah, get really clear on what success means to you. If success just means dollars to you and what you love to do doesn't have a place in the market, that's going to be a rough life. But for most of us, success means more than just dollars in the bank. That's part of it. But get real clear, paint a picture for yourself of what success means for your life. It might mean, it might have something to do with your family relationships or your home life or your home situation, or traveling or adventure or inner peace, right? Get real clear on what success looks like for you. And then when you're looking at the piece of the dollars in the bank, when you start having customer validation conversations about what jobs are they trying to get done, right? What are their problems, what are their pains and gains, you'll start to see some of the matches back to your interests, your passions, and your skills. And that's where you start to find the sweet spot in a value proposition, which can grow into a business.
And I think on that topic, as I'm thinking about this, there's a tool online called the Gallup Strength Finder, which will actually help you to identify what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, and then you can use that to sort of start to make the plan for how you're going to actually do your business. So all of you have worked in startups and been around startups, and I'm just wondering if you have like a favorite startup story. And I should have warned you about some of these questions.
That's all right. I can start with one. This is a story of a team that came out of a startup weekend that I ran in Tampa Bay. They were originally called Exmo, and the way startup weekend works, you pitch an idea on Friday, and at the end of it, you end up with a team and hopefully a product. So these guys had worked. All they had was a slide deck at the end. I don't even think they placed in the competition, but two of the guys, they just hustled. They believed in the idea, and they went through, for 2.5 years, 3 years, they worked on this idea. They built a mobile app. They loved it. They started, figuring out, hey, do we need to take external money? Like, what's our next step? How do we really get this to the next level? And they, I think they got themselves into Y Combinator out in California with the idea. It changed a little bit. The name changed. And then they ended up being acquired by Ticketmaster, I'd say maybe a year ago. And now, going to Shea's point of figuring out, what your success looks like. My buddy Todd, who is one of the founders of that company, he's over in Australia just backpacking. Like, he's just living the dream. He's out of the company now, so he's doing what he really loves, which was traveling, and that was always his goal. So for 5 years, he worked really, really, really hard to build out this idea, and now he's truly getting to do his passion and his love, and that's okay. Like, the startups are not a quick game. Like, you see all these success stories in Silicon Valley that are like, and overnight this company went from 0 to 1 billion. That's not the case. Most of these companies that are doing that, they've been working on these things for 7 years, 10 years, long nights, early mornings. They've just been like hustling nonstop. Anybody that'll listen to them, they're talking to. And those are like the stuff that you don't hear about that goes on in startups.
One of my favorite stories is a local womanpreneur named Julie Colombino, and her company is Rebuild Globally. And one of her new brands is Demae Fashion, and it's an ethical fashion line. And the story of how she got started, she went to Haiti after the earthquake on a relief mission. And as she was passing out water and shoes and supplies, a lot of the local Haitian women were approaching her and just, instead of, they're bypassing the water and they're saying, give us a job, give us a job. Like, we're not interested in these handouts. We want to support ourselves and our families. Give us a job. And she was really wrecked by that. And she came back to the U.S. and she's like, how do I get jobs in these people's hands? So she came up with a really innovative business model where she takes trash from Haiti, which they have a lot of unused, unrecycled tires, and she learned and pioneered a way to turn these tires into beautiful sandals. So leather uppers, and then the tire is the lower. And then she created a company in Haiti, and it's all employee owned, and it's mostly women. And these women are employee owners of the company. They become artisans. They learn how to make the sandals. And then Julie works to open up the distribution channels across the U.S. So she's gained a partnership with Kenneth Croll, and they're in a love-Haiti relationship. And so he's promoting her line, and I think in the first week in March, she's launching in Madison Square Gardens for an ethical fashion show. So it's a really neat demonstration of how, something that she was passionate about, her heart was just wrecked by this situation. She wanted to find a way to solve it, and just starting another nonprofit wasn't the answer, so she had to start a for-profit business to solve this.
Very cool.
Well, I spent the last 5 years in the Navy Public Affairs, and I found myself, I co-created the Public Affairs program for EOD Group 2, which is something that you don't normally do in the military, but I just happened to get the opportunity, so that was awesome. But one thing I remember is I was covering an event for a Wounded Warrior event. It was a run, and I had mentioned one of the, I put a couple of the fallen sailors in the story, and we posted it on the Facebook page, and a woman, the wife of one of the fallen, actually put in the comment, thank you so much for mentioning my husband. I was able to show our son, and that really meant a lot to us. And I was like, it was just blown away that it's incredible how much reach and how much you can affect people's lives when you do something positive and try to do something positive.
Great, thank you. Would you say there's a specific kind of personality that will be successful as a startup?
Borderline sociopath?
Pretty much.
Scientifically proven.
I mean, I've seen introverts, I've seen extroverts, I've seen everybody. I say if you're driven, you're going to succeed regardless of whether it's a startup or anything in your career. But yeah, you have to be a little crazy to be doing a startup. Because you're going to be talking to anybody and everybody, and you're going to be wearing a lot of hats, so you're going to have to learn to do a lot of things. Like, I'm not a finance guy, but I know a lot about numbers now because of startups and stuff.
Yeah, flexibility, really. Like, you have to wear all the hats and just wear the hell out of them.
So, one of the obviously very popular things now is Kickstarter and things like that. What is your opinion about you trying to get funding for your business through those avenues?
I actually just had a friend. I had a friend who had it was New York Said. He did a book through Kickstarter, and that was very successful for him. But I've also heard a lot of stories about the ones that didn't make it, and the disappointed people who invested, and the squandered opportunities. And I think before you do it, you really need to have all of your ducks in a row so that you can deliver. Because if you can't deliver, that is going to be a disaster.
Well, I'm one of those ducks that had things squandered away from me. I was a big proponent of Kickstarter. I like helping startups and companies, especially with products and cool products that they're doing. The biggest thing that I see with all these crowdfunding sites, whether it's Kickstarter or any of the other ones, is they're not doing enough research, and it's not like you're the first guy on the block. Like, you've seen things fail before. Like, you should know that if you think production is going to take 3 months, it's probably going to take 6 months to 9 months because there's going to be some kind of problem. You should probably know if you're having it manufactured in China that they go on a holiday every year, and you shouldn't plan. Like, you should put that into your production timeline. And then the biggest thing that comes around that, especially with Kickstarter, since you don't have face-to-face interaction, is communication. If you're promising that you're going to deliver a product to somebody and they have given you money, make sure you are communicating with them. If you're falling behind, tell me immediately, because I'm going to be a lot more at ease than if you tell me a year and a half later and you're like, sorry guys, we're belly up, we're out of money, we can't deliver on anything. Thanks for giving me that $500 though, because I got a cool new car. So those are if you're communicating with people, it makes everything go a lot more smoothly. You don't have those horror stories of people complaining. The horror stories come from the no communication, and that's for startups, that's anything in life. Make sure you're communicating with people because it puts their minds at ease.
Yeah, there's a local success story for a Kickstarter. Trobo, the storytelling robot, came out of a startup
I
weekend.
love those guys.
They're
Yeah.
awesome, right?
Yeah.
If you can connect with them, they have figured out the science of launching and running a successful Kickstarter campaign. Yeah. And there is a science to it. There's a time of day, there's a critical mass within a certain window of time. You save your big dollars until like right before the very end. So there's a whole science to running a successful Kickstarter campaign. So educate yourselves on that. And make sure you do your customer validation conversations, because something that's happening now is people are exhausting their entire market just as soon as they put their product on Kickstarter, because the only people that would want this random cooler that also doubles as a sleep bed or something is the people who are perusing Kickstarter for random cool ideas, right? And so they get funded, and then they come out of that and they realize there's actually no market outside of Kickstarter for this product, so I don't have a business.
All right, thank you. At this time, we have some time for questions from the audience. If you are here, please raise your hand and a microphone will be brought to you. If you are online, please direct your questions to the moderator and we'll try to get those answered too. First question.
For online students, don't forget to click Show Chat on the right-hand side of the screen.
Hi, my name is James Kyle. Thank you guys for coming. My question is actually for Shea. When you mentioned all of your clients for the weVENTURE get a digital pack, could you please go over some of the things that were included in that again? Some of them were familiar to me, and some of them weren't. And maybe just briefly touch on what each one does, because I think it's crucial that managing time and energy and all that. If there's a way to do that, especially with the business tech, that'd be great.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for that question. So we start with Dropbox. So we are 99% all digital office, and we run a government grant program. So that is really awesome for us that we've accomplished that. We do that with Dropbox. So that's all of our file transfer and file sharing. And once we get the client set up in that methodology with us, it tends to carry over naturally into their businesses as well. So Dropbox, we also talked about Basecamp. So Basecamp is a cool project management software or application. It's really good for organizing discussions around collateral. So it's a nice place for that to happen, and also kind of keeping track maybe of it's got a beautiful calendar feature, which is nice. It is not good, however, for managing workflow and tasks. So we use Trello for that, and we use the agile workflow for our office, and we teach our clients to use the same. And Trello makes a really nice digital version, right, of this idea of boards and cards and dragging cards as they move through the process. So we use Trello for that. And I mentioned Calendly. So Calendly is a self-scheduling tool. You go in, you set up your availability on it, you get a unique link. You can set up different types of appointments on your calendar. So I have 15-minute phone calls, I have 20-minute coffees, I have 40-minute planning sessions, and I have 2-hour strategic whiteboard sessions on my Calendly. So based on the parameters I set, people can click that link, which is in my email signature, and they can book themselves on my calendar, because trying to coordinate schedules is just a nightmare. And then I also use Doodle. I think there's a better one now for group scheduling, but we use Doodle for group scheduling. If there's 5 or 6 people that clients are trying to get together, send out a Doodle, everybody fills out their availability, and it finds the most available time slot for everyone. Did I mention any more? I think that was it.
Next question.
Okay. Hi. This question is also for Shea. As an online student, I'm an online student right now. How was it that you were able to build your network here at Full Sail effectively?
Such a good question. Turning in my assignments on time, thanking my instructors.
Thank you for that.
thanking my instructors for the hard work and the extra hours that they put into office hours, being proactive and asking my instructors extra questions, and then the same with my classmates. So as I started to see other classmates kind of rise to the top, the ones who were posting early, who were really participating in the discussion threads, not just checking it off the list, but actually trying to have meaningful conversation through the assignments, I would find those people and identify them and build relationship with them, ask them questions, give them compliments, all genuine, obviously. But I was really proactive in having those online conversations. And I was a student at Florida State, pre-med, a million years ago, and I did not build the same relationships or have the same opportunities that Full Sail gave me even as an online student. So there's tons of opportunities there. Definitely take them.
Next question.
Hi, how you all doing? My question is, as you all were, starting in your careers as entrepreneurs, at those times where you kind of step into the territory of where, it's your first time kind of dealing with a new challenge or a new hurdle that you may not have ever you never stepped to before. Where did you go for some extra help during those times to kind of help you get through that?
So, like Shea said, I made very good friends with a lot of my professors. I was an on-campus student, so I leaned on them a lot. One of the assignments I had was to reach out to some industry experts before I graduated and just see if, they would have a chat with me. And more times than not, all of them would have a chat. So I formed some very, very beneficial relationships before I had even graduated. And it's a lot easier as a student to say, I'm a student somewhere, would you mind taking 15 minutes of your time, versus, somebody that's already in the industry asking that question. And then you have them as a mentor, you can, pick their brain, that kind of stuff. That was huge going into that, is having somebody I could lean on and, pick their brain, ask questions, know they've done it before. So yeah, that would be my biggest advice to you, is to, especially your professors. I mean, I still talk to all of my professors that I had, even though some of them have since moved on from here.
Yeah, and even after you leave here and you do your internship or your first career, I was tremendously fortunate to work with truly talented people, just by luck of the draw. But I made sure that I built positive relationships with them, because one, I mean, that's just the right thing to do. But also, you gain all that information whether you know it or not, just being around these really talented people. It just kind of leaches into you. So surround yourself with the best possible people that you can.
If you're the smartest person in the room, you need to find a different room.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, how you doing? My name's Breland Evans. I actually got offered opportunity to help with the startup, and a lot of everything that you guys are saying is really great information. The biggest question I have is for the product or the value proposition. When you haven't yet patented your idea, how do you go about asking, potential buyers if they would like this object without giving details of the object to get it out there? And I know a lot of people say you can't be afraid to put your idea out there because you think someone's going to steal it, but at the same time, you don't want someone to steal it. So how would you guys go about that?
So value proposition validation is different than product testing. So when you're doing your value proposition validation and you're having those customer conversations, it's not about your product, it's not about your solution. It's all about the customer. You're gonna ask them questions that relate to your product or service without ever bringing your product or service up. So let's say you've created a new game console, right? You're gonna find people who are gamers, and you say, hey, how often do you play games? Yeah, what does it look like when you get home and you start playing games, right? And how do you deal when you get an interruption when you're playing your games? And what are you doing to prepare for your games, throughout your workday, right? So you're just going to ask them these really open-ended questions, no yes or no, and you're never going to say, would you use a new game console, right? Are you unhappy with your current game console? You're not going to ask those kinds of questions in the beginning, so you're not really revealing or uncovering any IP. When you get into testing, right, and you're actually doing your alpha testing, your beta testing, your MVP, minimum viable product, and prototyping, that's a different scenario. That's with a closed group of people that you've started building relationships with, who are probably going to become your brand advocates, not your competitors.
Even then, though, I think there's a little bit too much emphasis put on trying to keep this thing to yourself. Yeah. You built it. Nobody is going to build it like you. So even if somebody tries to make a version like it, it's still not going to be it's still not going to be like the one you made. So I think, yeah, you want to protect it a little bit, but also I think don't be too worried about that, because if you believe in it and you put your soul into it, then that's yours, right? And no one's going to be able to duplicate that.
I have a notebook that says, "Congratulations on having the same great idea as someone who successfully executed it."
That was pretty much where I was going with that. So you hit the nail on the head.
Okay, I think we have an online question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Hello, guys. Thanks for coming out today. My name is Joshua Henderson. First of all, entrepreneurship has been something that I've been interested in for a while now. Right now, my kind of end goal is to have my own art studio someday. But as I talk to more people who are in the position that you guys are in, I kind of hear two different sides or two different ways of approaching it. One of them is, which has kind of been repeated here today by you guys, is find your idea, solidify it, build your network, and just work hard until that's realized. And then the other side I'm hearing is go out into the industry, get a job, and learn from your job how businesses are run, build your network with your coworkers and with the people you're doing business with, and then move on from there. So I just wanted to get your guys' opinion on, how you feel about that.
I mean, there's definitely value in taking a job and learning and making a network there. But we live in a day and age where there's meetup groups and there's all this kind of other stuff. So those networks can still be built outside of it, and you can still be hustling while you're building your art studio or whatever it may be. You don't need to go into that brick and mortar job. Like, there's no secret sauce anywhere. And especially as an entrepreneur, you're going to end up learning all of this stuff along the way. You're going to wear, like we've talked about many times, all of those hats. So there's nothing that you're not going to end up knowing by the time you're done being an entrepreneur. And entrepreneurs are constantly learning. There's new things I'm learning every day. So that's definitely something you should, take to heart as well.
This circles back to the knowing yourself, though, right? So you've really got to, how risk averse are you? What is your, maybe you're the kind of person that needs to work a little bit before you do this to feel that comfort zone. Or maybe you can just throw yourself into it, fail a bunch of times and don't even care and keep rolling. It really comes down to you and what you are comfortable, what your comfort zone is. And that's just soul searching on your part, because you can do it either way. I mean, people are doing it every day, working and doing something on the side, or just going all in and seeing what happens. And so it really just comes down to what you can do.
There's some compelling evidence that some of the most successful ventures were from people who came out of an industry. So they have deep industry knowledge and they have a deep understanding, deep empathy of the problems of that industry, and they have intuition on what's going to work and what's not going to work. So as students who don't have decades, right, of experience under our belts necessarily, I would encourage you to consider, maybe if that's not the path you want to go, if you don't want to go into an industry or corporate America for a while before you start your business, maybe look at a co-founder, right? Look at a non-corpreneur, somebody who has been in that industry for a long time, has built the connections, does have the experiential wisdom from that space, right? And kind of marry your passion and your innovation with that as a potential approach.
Hi, I'm Lucas Cross. I'm web dev. And I heard in the bios, I'm not sure who it was, the empathy framework. Can you elaborate on that, please?
Sure, that's my product that I co-created with my co-founder, Brian Noel. So we kept finding that companies in the 5 to 50 million annual revenue range that were our clients, we were consulting with them. He was consulting on branding work, I was consulting on digital technology and marketing. We found that they were having these same problems, and we kept bringing each other in on those jobs. And so we said, there's got to be a better way to get upstream, because we're down here downstream. They're bringing us in for a marketing or sales problem, and then the real solution lies right upstream in the SOP, in the organizational structure. So we kind of self-lobotomized, and we came up with this systematic way of building empathy into an organization through their standard operating procedures, starting with the founders and their key leadership teams. So we teach them how to do customer validation and get into the minds and hearts of their customers through progressive team exercises. And that ends up resulting in changing the way that their position agreements are structured. We try and move them more towards an agile workflow. It also ends up impacting their branding efforts, their marketing plan, their customer service, and their sales plans, all because we're helping them to get inside the minds and hearts of their customers systematically as written in the standard operating procedures over about 9 months.
What exactly does it, is it like code or is it just like a business model almost?
It is it's a facilitated experiential workshop series over 9 months. So we come into the organization and train the leaders.
Online question?
Okay, we have a student asking, should a startup ever start on the international level of marketing their product? This is a student in the mobile apps degree program.
Oh boy.
Stump the panel.
No, I wouldn't say stump the panel. It's interesting because especially in mobile, you'll see some mobile apps that like blow up overnight. Like the one that comes to mind is like Peach. That's like the latest one that like blew up overnight, and I don't even think it exists anymore. It was like a thing for a week. What I like to tell people when I'm mentoring them is, obviously identify who your customer is, find what their target market is, and then, start small, start local, because there's tons of things that go into this, marketing dollars, all this kind of stuff. And if you try and expand too fast, you're going to run yourself too thin, and then you're going to end up going under because you just can't support the amount of work. And I think that's what happens with a lot of these, startups that I see that launch, especially in mobile, since it's so easy to do now. You just throw something like on the App Store and boom, it's out there to everybody. And then they get inundated with requests or like, oh, I want this thing or that thing, and they can't keep up, and it's usually a 1 or 2 person team, and they go under because they weren't prepared for customer support and terrible reviews and all of this kind of stuff.
You want to be able to scale intelligently and not be forced to scramble to throw a patchwork thing together in order to sustain your growth.
Right now, if you wanted to continue with your questions, Rob.
Sure. So I don't actually have any other questions either. Tell us something. If you had to give one piece of advice to someone who's leaving this room today and they're thinking about starting a business, what would be the first thing they should do?
Go hang out with other entrepreneurs who are thinking about starting a business. So go join the Orlando Tech Association. They have monthly meetups. You'll be around other starters. Go to a startup weekend, come to a weVENTURE workshop series, and get around other people to see if this is really going to be your jam.
Do soul searching. Learn about yourself. Know your true self. And know what you can and can't do, your strengths and weaknesses, because that'll be huge as you guys go forward as well.
Yeah, really know what's important to you and what you stand for. Your brand, really, that's super important. Once you know that, you really can do anything because you have this philosophy that you can build on. So, yeah, know yourself. And you have all the time in the world to do it right now, so.
This question's for Ms. Shea. Earlier you spoke about manufacturing and distribution. One of my biggest challenges right now is I have a prototype of something I've been working on it, but that whole licensing negotiation process has been something that I've been trying to do a lot of research on lately. Is that something you can talk about a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And right now, that's a very kind of customized hand-holding experience that we're taking our clients through. So we do it on a case-by-case basis. There's so much variation. However, you can definitely, if you come down to the Orlando Tech meetups, which I think third Thursdays in the Exchange Building downtown Orlando, you will meet a lot of people who have gone through various manufacturing, distribution, channel troubleshooting, and we've got a solid group of local entrepreneurs who are producing hard products. A lot of them came out of Startup Weekend, and you can talk to them about, this is something that I'm thinking about, or this is something I'm struggling, how did you deal with it? And if they don't have a specific solution, they can probably refer you to somebody who did. So that's where it goes back to building those relationships.
Now, are you a student here? I'm going to throw this back at you. Do you guys have like a licensing class or for whatever you're in? I know like there was a class like that when I went through the program, and I was going to say if you want to reach onto that professor, I'm sure they have experience doing that, and they can, you ask them, hey, can you come in on a Saturday or something? I'm sure they're more than happy to, help walk you through that process as well and, guide you along the way with that.
Or even
The music business program did talk a lot about a lot of that, but like some of the more detailed thing, like you said, can be more specific. So that's why I'm trying to see where I can find a little bit more.
you can reach out to the other degrees too, because I think there's like a business degree. Like you can reach outside of your degree to other instructors who are more knowledgeable in that area, and ask them too, because they're right here and they're here for you, even if they're not your instructor.
Hi. So I have a business, and I've been getting like legal and money, like accountants and legal things like that. And how do you know when you have found an accountant or a legal advisor that is really going to help you along with the process and actually follow through with everything that they are supposed to be talking to you about?
Oh,
You mean you've hired them as a vendor, or you're just seeking like free advice from them?
Well, like with my accountant, he has been in the industry that my business is in, and he knows everything, but he isn't really as excited for us as he should be, I believe. So
Have you paid him money?
Yes.
Then he should be following through with everything. As soon as you're doing exchange for services, he should be delivering on what he says he should be delivering on. Obviously, if he's not as excited for what you guys are doing as you guys are, you probably want out of that relationship and to find somebody that's just as excited as you are about your product, whether that's accountants, attorneys, whatever it is, because they're going to be the ones that'll be by your side day in and day out. You can call them at any hour of the day. I mean, when you're starting a company, somebody's going to try and sue you for something. So you want to be able to have that lawyer that you can call at 2 a.m. and you're like, oh my God, I'm freaking out. And he's like, we got this. Like, I love your idea. We're going to work through this and, fire right back at them. So those are the type of people you want, especially if you're giving them money and they're not following through on that. Like, I would get rid of that guy immediately. Even if he's a friend, like, you're gone. Like, sorry, you're supposed to deliver on something and you can't deliver. Like, that's not how I would run my business. So I don't know why you're running your business that way, type of deal.
Thank you.
Is there another question?
Those are all of the questions. Oh, I'm sorry. We
Oh,
do
we got
have one more online.
We have a question from Jose online. He's in the Internet Marketing Program, and it's for Randy. And he said, how is it working in public relations with the DoD? I've been considering to enlist and join the public relations team in the Coast Guard one day.
I worked with a couple of Coast Guard guys, and they are awesome. So if you go Coast Guard, they're good too. It's really challenging, but in a beautiful way. I mean, if you take the job, right, public relations is difficult on its own. It can be really stressful. And then when you throw that in an operational capacity where you're on a ship in the middle of the Persian Gulf and it's 120 degrees out and you're trying to do your job, it throws a whole other layer of complication onto it. But I think if you can do that, right, and if that's something you're interested in, you should, because once you can do that, you can do anything, right? The worst day for a civilian is like a great day for you. And they'll never understand how hard it is for you to have overcome so much, and you can use that as fuel. So it really, I mean, at least for me, it's allowed me to really push boundaries that I didn't even realize I was capable of. And it gives you a lot. And it also gives you a great sense of giving back, because you're a part of a larger mission, and you're doing something, and especially with public relations in the military, you're helping people, you're helping these service members stay in contact with their families, right? So they may not see their loved ones for upwards of a year, but if they see a story about them that you wrote, or photos, then you're making that connection, and you're really building bonds that otherwise wouldn't exist. So there's a lot of opportunity. I think it's great. I think everybody should do it if they're able.
Okay, we're at the end of time now, so I want to thank all of you for being here, whether you're here on campus or you're online, and especially I want to thank our guests, Michael, Randy, and Shay.
Thank you.